My name is Sis McCready. I'm the team coordinator for the communities team. I'm so pleased to see so many faces being able to join us tonight. And to kick us off tonight, I'm actually just going to pass over to a video which has been recorded by Councillor Jim McMahon, who is the Deputy Leader of the Council and who also holds a portfolio for housing and communities. So it's over to the video from Councillor McMahon.
Good evening. I am delighted to welcome you to the 2021 Communities Conference. Please accept my apologies if I sound a wee bit nasally this evening. I'm absolutely choked with a cold. So by way of introduction, my name is Jim McMahon and I am East Ayrshire Council's Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Community Safety, Roads and Transport and Community Cohesion. Through my role, I have had the pleasure of meeting many of you attending this evening's conference and working with you on community projects. This conference is about celebrating the strong partnership within our Community Action Plan groups, community councils, community asset transfer groups and resilience groups, and making plans for the future. So looking back to March 2020, at the very beginning of the pandemic, it was clear that the delivery of council services would be significantly affected and that priorities would have to be established to help the most vulnerable people in our communities. Food and community resilience were recognised as priorities, and lockdown brought a number of complex issues that had to be tackled quickly and effectively. People were self-isolating due to symptoms or underlying health conditions, were experiencing a loss of income due to businesses closing, and the closure of schools and access to free school meals meant that thousands of people across East Ayrshire were now vulnerable and experiencing food shortages. The introduction of social distancing guidelines also meant that new ways of working would be required as it became clear that initial plans to address these issues, including bringing children into school for a meal or utilising existing food banks or food larders, would no longer be appropriate. A new process was developed to help people affected by lockdown and the impact of COVID-19 applying for emergency meals. Working with East Ayrshire's Dignified Food Group, which was established with key partners including community organisations and FareShare, the UK's national network of charitable food redistributors, catering services in vibrant communities enhanced our local community larders. FareShare, with funding from the Scottish Government, delivered 1,100 kilograms of food per week to the council during lockdown, and catering services helped distribute this to initially 12 community larders across East Ayrshire that were supporting over 1,000 people each week. This was a tough time. Many people were experiencing financial hardship for the very first time in their lives. But something I will never forget is the way that everyone pulled together to support each other and the strong sense of community that we all felt. Community resilience hubs were established by Vibrant Communities in partnership with 110 community groups. The hubs coordinated volunteering opportunities and tailored support to local needs. Vibrant Communities connected with local organisations, and over 1,000 volunteers provided much needed support to communities, including befriending, prescription delivery services, financial support, food shopping and food provision. Working at the coalface, so to speak, along with our community volunteers, let me experience firsthand the impact that the pandemic was having, but the sense of togetherness and appreciation was clearly visible throughout our communities. Through Local Resilience Network, by May 2020, the Council distributed in the region of £137,000 to support 44 groups providing emergency and supplementary food support, befriending and helping with shopping. This localised community approach provided support to over 7,000 people who had lost their jobs, were self-isolating or shielding during lockdown. From food provision, collecting and delivering prescriptions, doing shopping and even calling people for a chat, together we mobilised quickly and effectively the most vulnerable in our communities. Throughout the pandemic, you have stepped up and shown your commitment to your communities, but I know that this is just the tip of the iceberg of what you do every day. I know that there is a power of work being carried out to make our communities more attractive. with organised community cleanups, community garden projects, and to help increase community pride. There are community asset transfer projects that are totally revolutionising the way services are delivered in our local communities. As we head towards the winter, our winter resilience groups are about gritting pavements and helping older people clearing their paths and making safe routes through the towns and villages. You have my sincere thanks and utmost admiration. Tonight we have a very interesting event ahead, so without any further ado, it gives me great pleasure to hand you over to our very own Chief Executive of East Ayrshire Council, Eddie Fraser, who will now get the conference underway. So once again, with my heartfelt thanks, I now hand you over to Eddie.
I have a few thoughts to the conference about how the past year has been and the response from our communities. I'm sure you'll hear from many people that the response from East Ayrshire communities has been absolutely fantastic to this pandemic. None of us could have anticipated that we would still be here at this time with the same level of restrictions. None of us could have thought of the impact that it's had on individuals and families and their communities. But at the same time, we should reflect on the positives of the work of communities and of the help that we've been able to give each other. Last year at this time, I was Director of Health and Social Care here in East Ayrshire, and we were just gearing up to the first vaccinations. Who would have thought that here we are, with most of us going for a third vaccination, and some people, our young people, going for their vaccination too. It really has given us a level of freedom to get back into a normal life while still trying to live with the pandemic. Who would have thought that our young people would have spent so much time out of school and make new ways of learning in terms of what we call blended learning, and now back in school with still levels of restrictions? Who would have thought that many people would have had to work from home over this period of time, or find new ways of safely working if you do have to come into the community to do your work? I would just want to continue to thank everyone for all the work that they have done here in East Ayrshire. That's our communities, that's the people in our retail sector, that's the people in our public sector, our health sector, for the work that they've done over that time.
Good evening, everybody. I'm now going to hand over to our Service Manager of Vibrant Communities, Suzanne Clark.
Thanks, Kieran. Yeah, just as Kieran said, just to introduce myself to those that don't know me and have never met me, I'm Suzanne Clark. I'm the Service Manager for Vibrant Communities, and I'm absolutely delighted to join you all tonight for your annual Communities Conference. Some of you will know that I'm not new to Vibrant Communities. In my previous role, I was the team leader for the communities team in Vibrant Communities and work very closely with many of you who are on the screen this evening. So I'm delighted to see some familiar names and faces. And for those that haven't met me before, then I look forward to getting to know you over the next year or so. It has been very difficult times during the pandemic, as we've heard outlined from Councillor McMahon and also from our Chief Exec, Eddie. But it's also been an opportunity for you guys within your communities to really shine through in those skills and talents and that community power that you hold so dear, in the work and the commitment that you give as volunteers within your community. You certainly rose to that challenge during a really difficult time at the height of the pandemic, and I know many of you are still responding within your communities through your groups and organisations, in addition to trying to get back to some form of normality. So, as I said, it is lovely to be here with you, and this is usually, or was in the past, the highlight of my calendar year, or one of the many highlights of my calendar year, albeit a very different approach this year online, so bear with the team. It's new to them as well, doing this online, so if there's any technical difficulties, just bear with them around that. But what I really wanted to talk to you about, you've heard from Councillor McMahon and also our Chief Exec about what's gone before and the amazing work that you have all been doing since the pandemic and since the last time we all met physically and in person collectively in a communities conference setting. Really, what I want to say first of all is pass on also my heartfelt thanks on behalf of the council to you all, because certainly as a council we could never have responded and provided and supported the most vulnerable people in our communities throughout the pandemic if it wasn't for you all in some way contributing to what you have done and still do in response to the pandemic. But actually it just highlights that strength of commitment and volunteering time that you all do, and it demonstrates that our communities really are at the heart of everything we do within East Ayrshire. So I just want to say thanks first and foremost for that. But what you have really demonstrated and continue to demonstrate, albeit pre and you will into the future, pre and post pandemic, is really that community power that you all have and that commitment that you give to your community, whether that's been part of the community council, a community action plan group, a community asset transfer organisation, a development trust, a local resilience group, or any other group that you're representing tonight that I may have missed off that list there. The work that you all do and that commitment that you give to your communities doesn't go unnoticed. Sometimes it might feel like that, but actually what you do in serving your communities is absolutely outstanding. And I know I'm certainly really proud of you all, and you should all be really proud of yourselves and everything that you do for your local communities. And I'm delighted to be back in the role of service manager within Vibrant Communities, serving and supporting our communities of East Ayrshire, and you have my commitment that you will continue to be supported by your local community worker. I know there is some changes, some of you may be aware, to the community worker geographic area, and you will be hearing, if you've not already heard, if there's any change in terms of your support, but we will continue that support going forward as we always do, and I give that commitment going forward. But what I want to again to focus on is looking forward. So we've done a lot of that looking back, but as we emerge out of the pandemic, I know we're still, cases are still high locally, and we've still got that commitment to serve our communities and responding and on the back of the pandemic. But as we look forward and we start to recover and renew our areas of work, it's absolutely embedding what has been really good and strong over a really challenging time for us across East Ayrshire, but take what has worked so well and the strength of the relationships and partnerships and collaborations that have been developed very quickly, and in some cases overnight, in order to respond and to local need and to serve our local communities. So I want for us to consider and think about how we emerge from the pandemic and how we build on that strength. And that good working relationship that has been in existence within your communities, between organisations, new faces getting on board in some of your local groups. I want you to harness that. I want you to continue to keep going strong. You have demonstrated how resilient you guys are within your organisations, and we want to continue to support that. The pandemic has highlighted some key challenges, more so than ever, that poverty is in real existence across our local communities. The mental health and well-being of each and every one of us is extremely important, and that has been highlighted more so through the pandemic. So as we emerge and try to recover as East Ayrshire as a collective, and I don't just mean from the local authority, it's about building on what that strength has been of those relationships, the partnerships, those collaborations, and really harnessing the skills and talents that you all have and demonstrate on a day-to-day basis on the work that you're delivering within your local area. We're certainly building on what we've taken as good practice out of this and trying to deliver our services much more on a place level, and strengthening those partnerships and collaborations alongside, shoulder to shoulder, with each and every one of you within your organisations. And that has just hot off the press this week. I was involved in taking through a paper to our corporate management team around harnessing that strength of community power, and also around a place and the importance of communities and places and those partnerships that exist in that, and really ensuring that your community voice is heard and feeding through and filtering through our communities, all our communities, but most importantly, supporting the development and having involvement in the decision making around the delivery of our local services, whether that be within the council or our community planning partnerships. So I think we've got, as much as we've had, you'll all be really tired, I can only imagine it's been a really challenging time for each and every one of us, no matter what we've been doing. I think we've got some exciting times ahead in terms of building on what has been strong and what's come out of the pandemic in terms of that partnership work in that delivery of what you do locally as volunteers, and how we can make sure that your voices are heard at a local level. So I'm giving my utmost commitment to you. If there's anything that we can do to support any of you within your organisations, then please don't hesitate to get in touch with your local community worker or through myself as service manager with Vibrant Communities. And I just want to wish you all well and hope you have a lovely evening tonight in your conference, and you've got some exciting workshops ahead. I'm going to pass over now. You're going to hear a video from Katie Kelly, our Deputy Chief Exec, and those that know Katie will know that she is absolutely so disappointed she isn't able to join you in person on the screen this evening. However, she didn't want to miss out, as you can imagine, for those that know Katie, so she has recorded a video. And that is really her opportunity to give you her own thanks on behalf of the council as well, but it's also allowing you a chance to reflect before moving into the next session on the conference programme. So thank you again for your time, and I look forward to meeting you all in the near future.
Hello everyone, I'm Katie Kelly, East Ayrshire Council's Deputy Chief Executive. I'm so sorry I can't be with you live at the conference tonight due to a prior family engagement. But I wanted to start out first of all by thanking you from the bottom of my heart for your incredible response to this terrible pandemic, COVID-19, over the last 18-19 months. It's been such a challenging time, but in East Ayrshire, our communities have been the best in Scotland, and I know that all of us working together and the response that you've had in communities, looking out for each other, helping with food, making connections, helping people to shield, and helping to offer advice and support when people have been really struggling, has absolutely saved lives. I'm so proud to work in East Ayrshire, and I'm so proud of the communities that I serve. I do think it's we're still not out of the woods with COVID-19 yet, and we still see cases waxing and waning, and we're still seeing people becoming ill and sadly losing their lives. All of us have been touched by this pandemic. All of us have had people related to us who have been unwell, who have lost their lives, and we need a chance to heal. And I'm hoping that these conversations are that chance to heal for us, sharing stories of what it felt like in the communities, what we learned from each other, and what we should do differently going forward into the future. So this part of the conference really is about sharing stories and sharing what you think went really, really well within the communities during the pandemic. What was better than it had been before? How did the council work alongside you? Is that the way it should stay forever? Are there things that we shouldn't do anymore? So I want you to reflect on those questions really. What's important to you now in the communities that you have? Has that changed because of COVID? Have you had more time to enjoy your community, go out walking more, maybe meet people that you hadn't met before? And can we use all of this learning to help us move forward together in East Ayrshire to become even better? Our vision, and my vision with all of you in terms of our vibrant communities, was to put the people at the heart of everything we do. Our job's to serve you in every way. And I know sometimes the council can seem bureaucratic and clunky and we can get things wrong. But absolutely our intention, and my intention through my leadership, is to make sure that we support you to achieve the hopes and the dreams, to support you to recovery and renewal beyond COVID, and for you to tell us the things that you need from us to help that to happen. So please take the time in this session to talk through things that we could do differently. Also reflecting into winter in terms of resilience. We do brilliantly across our communities in terms of responding to flood and cold weather. Is there anything more we can do together to help our communities get through some really difficult and challenging times? I'll hear all about it. I'm hoping that the conference is going to be recorded and that we can share the recording with others that can't manage to be here tonight. I also hope in the coming year to be able to come out like I've done whenever I can, to either talk to you in person and visit and see the amazing things that have happened in our communities, or even talk to you in a video like this. It's my absolute privilege to serve you in East Ayrshire, and I really do believe, you know, I go all over Britain and I connect with people now all over the world because of these things, and people have heard of the work that you do in our vibrant communities. They've heard about the care and the leadership and the innovation and creativity, and probably the biggest thing about people associate with the communities in East Ayrshire is the size of ambition. And people in our communities have won awards for building new buildings and running buildings and planting and having beautiful gardens. But I think the thing that we're most famous for is our people and the connections that we make with one another. So I would like to hope that we learn from this conference, that your stories that you share at this session as part of the interviews will help all of us to start to heal, but will help for you to send a really strong message to each other and to the organisation, my council, and to other partners about what we should do together going forward. We shouldn't go back to the way things were before if they weren't good enough. We only get one shot at this. We absolutely know this. We get one shot at having a really good and happy life. And the learning from a really, really difficult time like this, the same from disasters all over the world, actually can make new better things happen. And out of this really, really difficult time, I would love to see some hope emerging and us being able to rise even more to the challenge to help ourselves and each other to have the very best possible lives. So I wish you really good luck with the conference. I hope things go really, really well for you tonight. And I really look forward to hearing the output from that. And I look forward to hearing how I can help you in my role, but also how I can help the teams that we have across the council who work for you and serve you, help to make things better, even better within the communities that we serve. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Melissa McCulloch and I'm currently the acting team leader for the communities team. I'm absolutely delighted to have been asked to host this part of the conference. It's always great to hear from all our communities about all of the outstanding work that's taken place. So we were meant to be hearing from two of the communities tonight, but unfortunately, just at the last moment there, one of our communities haven't been able to take part just to unforeseen reasons. So we're just going to be speaking tonight to Steve from Darvel, who I believe is online. So we're going to just go through some questions with Steve. Steve, are you there?
Yes, Melissa.
Yes,
I've remembered to press the unmute button this time.
Fantastic, Steve. That's great. So, Steve, thank you so much for volunteering to do this and also to take up the whole slot. Now, it was a bit too late in the day to ask someone else to take part. So, Steve, I'm just going to ask you a few questions, if that's okay, and just about your experiences over the last few years within Darvel. Can you just introduce yourself to everyone, please, and tell us a little bit about your community and what's worked well over the past couple of years?
Okay, yeah, my name's Steve Gillis. I'm the treasurer for both the Community Council in Darvel and also for an organisation, a SPIO charity that we set up called DART, which stands for Darvel and Area Regeneration Team. We wanted to use the word trust, but the Companies House wouldn't let us for some queer legal reasons, so it's DART we're known as. I think maybe I was interested in a couple of the comments. I mean, Suzanne said we must be all feeling tired. I think I can say quite the opposite. I think we're all actually at the moment quite invigorated, looking forward to 2022. And kind of having coming out of what was in some ways a frustrating period, and it was a very demanding period and quite unsettling in many ways. So, DART, for example, was the group in Darvel that took the lead on COVID support. So we did, many of the things that all of you have done, like, delivering food parcels, delivering prescriptions and being, just a voice to listen to the community to some extent. And now that we're coming out of that, we're much more looking forward to getting back on track to some of the development proposals that we had in place and that, had been halted, particularly our flagship project, which is called the Corner, which is a construction and development project, which is at the heart of what we're trying to do in Darvel in terms of regenerating the community. So we're kind of, I would say, we had our AGM last night, for example. We had 23 people attending, and I didn't detect tiredness. I detected a real enthusiasm to move forward. In terms of the other thing, I think it was Katie who said it on the video, what's changed? And I think there are a couple of things that have changed. One is we got more volunteers that came out, people who really wanted to help during the pandemic, but thankfully have stuck around and are now moving into, regeneration projects, and that's terrific. We're very lucky in Darvel that we've got a team of really experienced and talented people across all ages, and that's brilliant. It means we can share the workload, as kind of sensibly as well. And it's probably an obvious thing to say, but working practices have changed. We spend a lot of time on Zoom or on Microsoft Teams. We use the internet more. We're much more using social media. Daily we use Microsoft Teams, so we constantly got chat and file sharing, happening in that instead of the kind of endless emails that you tend to build up, if you're doing this kind of stuff. So working practices have definitely changed. But I think the other thing that's maybe changed is more emotional or psychological, which goes back to what I was saying before. It's just a strong desire to move on, to get to 22, if you like, and start to get, doing the things that we really wanted to do in the community. And so I've realized I'm doing what I always do. I'm just waffling on, it's a good thing there's nobody else on this session, but maybe I'll pause there and let you comment, Melissa.
No, thanks. That's great, Steve. I was just going to ask you if you thought, if you had the community, if you had learned any lessons at all during the pandemic, if there been any key lessons that come out.
I think, the key thing for me is, I'm sure this is the case for all of you. I mean, Darvel's only a small town. It's 2,300 people, thereabouts, adults. But like many small towns, we've got a number of different organisations. We have the Darvel Improvement Group, we've got DART, we've got the Community Council, we've got Sports Darvel, and then of course you've got a number of other volunteer organisations like the Brownies and the Scouts and so on and so forth. And I think prior to the pandemic, we worked reasonably well together, but we didn't really work closely together, yeah? And I think that's one thing that's come out of the pandemic that's really good. We ended up having a much tighter relationship, and we now have projects where people are brought on board as delivery people on the projects from each of those organisations. And we also set up what we grandly call the Darvel Strategy Team, which looks at trying to coordinate the projects and tie those things together. So I think a big change for me would be a tightening and a big improvement in how we work together within those groups.
That's great to hear that you've actually learned so many lessons, and hopefully we can have a wee bit more discussion about that in some of the workshops later on as well. I'm just want to focus on now, Steve, as well, about us as an authority, as a council, and how we've been able to support you. So how have the council worked alongside you during the pandemic? And second part of my question is there anything that you think that we should have done differently as a council?
Right, that's it now, and I'll...
Somebody unmuted, but there you go. Yeah, maybe I'll talk about the pandemic in a moment, but to illustrate how we work with East Ayrshire Council, it's probably better to talk about the flagship project, which is known as the Corner. As I say, that's a construction and development project, which is now moving into it's an event. It's a multi-purpose space where we're going to be holding events, like music festivals and cafe days and stuff like that. Yeah. There's no doubt that this is a project that couldn't be done without huge support from East Ayrshire Council and from others indeed. So I think we've worked really well in identifying what is it we're trying to do with this project. How is it at the heart of the Darvel Regeneration Programme? And of course, obtaining resources, particularly funds. And I think there's been a lot of compromise there and a lot of to and fro and a lot of discussion. But I well remember, if you go back, I've been in the Community Council, I think 4 years now. I well remember going back about 4 years ago, we deliberately took the decision that we were going to try and make friends with everybody, including East Ayrshire Council. And, so we deliberately said, let's not be bickering, let's not be kind of at each other and complaining to each other, let's try to work together. And I think it's only now, or maybe in the last year, that started to pay real dividends in terms, and I don't mean just in terms of fund allocation, I mean in terms of, I think the folk and vibrant community in East Ayrshire, they know what Darvel's trying to achieve, they know it in detail, and they're fully supportive of it, and that's hugely valuable. If I can maybe just, on the kind of more negative side, going back to the pandemic, I felt at the beginning of I led the COVID support team in Darvel, and we had a good team. We had actually about 90 odd volunteers at one stage. I felt in the early period, maybe the first 3, 4, 5, possibly 6 weeks, there was quite a lot of confusion about who was doing what, and particularly in the delivery of food and to people in isolation, like where it was coming from, how it was organised, how you went about getting it, all that kind of stuff, yeah? Looking back, I think it would have been good maybe just to have a session like this, almost like an emergency online meeting between all of us, where we just got it laid out, well, this is the way it's going to happen. Because it took quite a bit of learning, and we went down 1 or 2 cul-de-sacs and spent a little bit of money that possibly we didn't need to before we got it right. So I think the early communications could have been better. Having said that, let me just say, everything was confusing at that time. So it's perfectly understandable if your response to me is, well, we didn't know what was happening either,
No, Steve, I think you've made some really valid points there, and I think we've recognised some of those lessons already, especially with some of the discussions we've had with other groups involved in the COVID efforts. And yeah, you're right, it was a new experience for everyone, a frightening experience for everyone. But as Suzanne has said earlier, everyone pulled together, and you've really, really done so well. I know that us as an authority have taken a lot of learning, but that suggestion you've just made there about maybe having pull together a really quick online session is something that we could do moving forward if anything like this ever happened again. Let's hope not.
Yeah, of course, everybody will be in a better position if something like this is needed, because we're all much more used to using things like Zoom and online facilities, and we've learned the lessons. So there'll be no excuse the next time, I guess.
Steve, can I just thank you very much for taking part in the conversation. It's been really great, and it's a real shame that John wasn't able to join us tonight, but perhaps next time. Just moving on to the...
Sorry, my pleasure. I mean, thank you for inviting us. And sometimes in Darvel, because we're at the edge of East Ayrshire, we feel a wee bit of a gateway town, a bit like, if anybody's watching the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov, we feel like we're the foundation planet miles from the centre, And so having an event like this where we can be at the heart of things is really great. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. We're just going to look at a short video now, which showcases some of the incredible work that volunteers have been doing throughout East Ayrshire and all of our communities. So I'm just going to pass over to the video now.
Hi, I'm Lillian. I represent the North West Community Action Plan up in the northwest of the town. I've been volunteering with different organisations for most of my adult life, but I've really noticed the change in the community the last few years. We've been putting on kids clubs, litter picks, fun days, and all sorts. The communities really came together this last few months with the COVID crisis, and the volunteers have been absolutely overwhelming.
been a key community volunteer driver for the North West Resilience Group Superheroes for about 6 weeks now, and I have been doing this volunteering role, and I feel that it's something that I really am passionate about, to support people through these extremely difficult times. And it's also given me able to myself to get out, and it helps my mental well-being as well.
For me, I think volunteering is a really positive thing. It's let me meet people that I would never normally meet in everyday life. I've met people with disabilities, so I've learnt more about them and helped their understanding of how their disabilities work and how they cope in society. I've learnt new skills like running meetings, taking minutes, working with accounts, and I think even generally just being around different people.
We're now going to be moving on to our workshops. You'll see for your delegates and workshop form which workshop you'll be in first of all. Each workshop is going to be 30 minutes, and then after the first workshop we'll have a wee break. So if you just bear with us just now until we get these moved into your wee workshops.
Thanks very much, Kieran, and folks. I hope you've enjoyed this evening's conference as much as I've actually enjoyed listening to all the stories. And I'm just going to go through some of the things that I think we picked up, in that sense that we saw clearly that strong partnership between our communities and the council and other public sector organisations. There's a bit of celebration in amongst all of this as well, in terms of how well we've achieved making a difference together between the council, our partners, the community, and actually in terms of everybody deserves that pat in the back in terms of the work that they've done through the pandemic. The difference we've made in our communities, but actually also going back to what our Chief Executive mentioned earlier around about that blended learning, that blended working approach. Who'd have thought this time 2 years ago, even a year ago, that we would have been able to facilitate a conference of this nature locally? Certainly we wouldn't have thought that as a council in that sense, and it's testament to how much things in society has moved on. And I've got to pay tremendous tribute to our colleagues within IT for their support this evening as well. And it is that back to that, who'd have thought we would have been in the place that we are? Who'd have thought that actually our services would have changed so much in that sense? But the important bit, and I'll go back to one of the comments that Suzanne made, that our communities are there at the heart of everything that we do, and that's where they should be. And there's certainly a role for us to play as a listening agent in terms of serving our communities. I think it's also really important to highlight well-being, as it came up earlier, in terms of not just the well-being of our communities, but the well-being of each of us as volunteers, and how much people have given over to the officers who have worked tirelessly through this pandemic as well. It is really important that we look after ourselves at this, because we're still living with COVID. And there's lots of resources out there, and actually the delivery of a lot of those resources have been yourselves, whether that be through the resilience groups or the community asset transfers, or the community resilience groups or community councils or the community organisations. I mean, it's so immense. I know that there was an ask from Katie around about, let us know what worked well, what could we improve on, and what can we do together. And I think there is real opportunity as we go forward together into this new future. Hopefully in a better place after COVID, to work together. We know we can work differently. We know that we can work fast. And we know we can get it right for our communities. And the important bit is that we do that with our communities. One of the things for me I saw is that that talk about an ambition, and the discussion is that we've seen in some of the working groups about our ambition for the future, the East Ayrshire that we want to see flourish, that those vibrant communities in and out the length and breadth of our local authority area. And it's really important that we support volunteers through their journey. We see the benefits that volunteering has, not only in terms of to the individual, but to the organisations and the communities in which they work within. And I'm really keen to see how we can develop that further. Folks, I got the privilege of sitting in the community asset transfer workshop twice in that sense. But what it showed was a very clear journey that when we work with our communities, when we give over the power to our communities, we see better facilities, we see more volunteers, we see better services, bigger uptakes, better use, greater investment, better response to local needs, and improved community engagement. And if that's not just an example to working this way by putting our communities first, then I don't know what else is. You would have seen through other workshops, and I know you would got an excellent workshop for our colleague colleagues from Facilities and Property Management in terms of our climate challenge. And my backdrop this evening is one of those key features that I'd like to highlight, and it's specifically put in place for tonight, is that if we can all still do a little bit more, we can encourage others to play their part and help East Ayrshire flourish. And actually the other element is there's great benefits from that. So yeah, my backdrop here is just to highlight one of the campaigns that we have going within the council. Finally, folks, I would just like to end by saying a massive thank you. I thank you to each and every one of you for your contribution this evening, to your contribution within your communities over this last 18-19 months through the pandemic. And I thank you for your commitment going forward to work together. You have your commitment from us and the council that we will do that side by side with you. We have been really, really fortunate. We've got amazing staff who work in and out our communities, your local community worker, the other colleagues within Vibrant Communities, colleagues across the council as well, who are here to work with you. And what I would say is there's an open door. Please, by all means, if we can do more, let us know what that would look like. We would be more than keen to work hand in hand with you. We know that you're our biggest assets, it being our community. So thanks very much. I hope you got a lot out of this evening. It is being recorded, so if there's other bits that you've been missed, then I'm sure you'll get to see that. And by all means, if there's anything else that you want to follow up on, please contact and link in with your local community worker. Folks, I'm going to leave it at that. I know we're just going slightly beyond time, and I'll quickly hand you over to Sis, who I believe is taking you through the evaluation stage. But thanks very much for your contribution tonight.
Thanks. I really just want to reiterate Kevin's thanks to everybody for coming along tonight, and also just thank the subgroup for helping pulling all this together, and Ian especially from IT, who's helped sort of put us where we should be eventually in workshops and things like that. Thanks for bearing with us since this is our first go at having the online conference. I hope you have enjoyed it. And you will see that just popped into the chat function, there is a link to the SMART survey for the evaluation for the conference. Could I please urge you just to take some time? It'll only take you about 5 minutes just to go into that link and go through the survey. As I say, it will be anonymous, and we will send out another wee link tomorrow just to sort of remind you as well. And just once again, folks, thanks again for all your support over the past year and a half. It has been a very difficult time, but as we can hear tonight from some of the chat that we've had and some of the remarks as well in the chat function, how good it has been at actually pulling communities together and working together more closely, and hopefully we can take that forward into the future and learn from those lessons that we've had over this past year and a half. So thanks again, folks. I know we're running 5 minutes over time, so we tried to pull some time back. I hope you've enjoyed it and hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.